All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today, the people have spoken. The rules are very clear about what happens next. For those of you wondering what in the hell I'm talking about, I recently, within the past few weeks, month-ish here, I have gotten over 500 subscribers, which means my YouTube channel gets closer to being a real YouTube channel. And it gave me access to the community tab. If you've never checked it out, if you go to youtube.com/TrainerJody, and you actually go over to community, you can see, I can post stuff there, and I can talk, and you guys can comment there as well, and we can have little conversations. That's cool. So the first thing I did was I did a poll to ask you all that have been so wonderful in subscribing and liking and commenting and all these wonderful things that have been getting these videos viewed by significantly more people than have ever viewed my videos before. I asked you guys which one of these subclasses you wanted me to do next, and you guys decided that blood magic was something that you thought was pretty cool. So, yeah, I'm very quickly going back to make sure. Yeah, I was just making sure that I didn't misread the poll somehow, but no. So yeah, that's what we're going to be covering today. Is the blood magic arcane tradition for the wizard. Quick reminder, if you are enjoying this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon and turn notifications on. All those things are super important and help to ensure not only that you're able to see this, but that other people can see it. And when I do more polls and things like that, which I plan on doing a lot more in the future, you can vote in them and kind of decide where things go next, what things that I could cover. So, that being said, let's dive into this. Quick refresher on 5th edition class design. In D&D 5th edition, every class is designed to play very, very differently right from the beginning. In order to do that, every class has these things that we call defining features. A defining feature is either something that is unique to the class, or maybe it's not unique to the class, but the class gets it earlier than other classes, or is able to use it in a different way. And in order for something to be a defining feature of a class, it needs to show up within the first 2 levels. So, what are the defining features of the wizard? Well, the first big one, which doesn't sound like a defining feature, but it totally is spellcasting. The wizard is the best spellcaster in the game. And it's done that way on purpose. Now, does that mean that the wizard is more powerful than No, in no way, shape, or form is that what I'm saying. But the entire point of being a wizard is that you are a spellcaster. Your entire identity is built around spellcasting. Other full casters have other things that they lean on. Druids have wild shaping. And just kind of their connection to nature. Clerics are divine followers. So in addition to their full spellcasting, they also have the ear of a god or goddess. Bards are just jackasses. No. Bards have the ability to kind of manipulate people. And then sorcerers are inherent magic users. They don't know what they're doing. A lot of times they're just making things up at their go. They're very improvisational. But wizards are spellcasters. That's what they are. They're known for. That is the entire purpose of being a wizard is, I know magic. The whole Keanu Reeves, I know Kung Fu. Well, wizards are, I know magic. And because of that, they get spellcasting abilities built into their spellcasting feature that are different than any other class. The big part of that is their spell book. Wizards have a spell book. Wizards learn spells by putting them into their spell book, and then every morning they have a limited number of spells that they can prepare for that day. But they have access to any spells that are in their spell book. What this means is, first of all, wizards have the largest spell list of any class. Generally, if an arcane magic user has access to the spell, the wizard has access to it as well. There are very, very few spells that are arcane in the nature that the wizard doesn't get. And they generally tend to be warlock spells because warlocks cast in such a different way. So the way to kind of limit them a little bit is, well, they can only learn so many spells. They don't get access to the entire wizard spell list every time they prepare spells like they do for a cleric or a druid. But it also means because of this spell book, they can learn more spells than any other class. And they do that by scribing more spells. It costs them money and time, but it means that they're incredibly versatile spellcasters. And I cannot emphasize this enough. The spell book is a wizard-defining feature. If you want to create your own class and you give them a spell book, you are making a wizard subclass. That's all there is to it. You can change the mechanics of how they cast. The spell book is a wizard thing, and I know there are ways for other classes to get spell books. The warlock actually has a pact item that they can get that effectively gives them a spell book. It doesn't work like the wizards. Defining feature of the wizard is their spell book and how that affects their spell casting. The second defining feature, which is a really good example of this is not exclusive to the wizard, but the wizard does get it before anybody else because they get it right at the first level. They get a thing called Arcane Recovery. During a short rest, they can regain spell slots. Now, there's some rules about how they can do it and the max number, the highest level spell slot they can get back and all that. That doesn't really matter. Wizards get to cast more spells than any other class right from level 1. Now, land druids eventually get something like Arcane Recovery, and we've already talked about how there are some other subclasses that give you abilities that are that either mimic Arcane Recovery or are literally Arcane Recovery, but they all come much later than first level. So, the wizard is the best spell caster in the game. Again, doesn't mean they're the most powerful, though it does, depending on how you measure power, wizards are very, very powerful. But they are the most prolific. They are the most skilled spellcasters in D&D 5th edition. They also get their subclass, which is called an Arcane Tradition, at second level. So a lot of times, their subclass abilities will give them a pseudo-defining feature. Not quite as noticeable as like the druid, where 9 times out of 10, whatever they get at second level with their subclass is going to massively change how they play their class. But a lot of times, the Arcane Tradition is going to help you kind of pick the spells that you focus on, the ones that you learn from level up as opposed to just copying them, things like that. So, very important to choose a good Arcane Tradition. So that being said, let's actually dive into this blood magic stuff. So, first things first, if you have the Tal'Dorei campaign setting, if you actually go to the beginning of the subclasses, there is a section called Hemocraft. Because there are actually 2 different subclasses that deal with effectively blood magic. You have the Blood Domain Cleric, and then you have the Blood Magic Wizard. The Hemocraft section, right at the beginning of this part of the book, explains kind of the basics of what blood magic is, how it works, how you can deal with the idea of creatures that don't have blood. Like Warforged generally are not described as having blood running through their veins. So does that mean that you can't have a blood magic wizard that is a Warforged? No. They do explain, the idea of blood being more of a life force and things like that. Definitely read that portion of it if you're thinking of taking either the Blood Domain or the Blood Magic Wizard, because it does give you a much better kind of foundation in fictional reality of how this could work. So, that being said, let's actually dive into the features themselves. At second level, when you pick this subclass, you get blood channeling. Whenever your current hit points are below your hit point maximum, you can use your own body as an arcane focus. In addition, when casting a wizard spell that requires a costly material component, you can forego the component by taking 1d10 necrotic damage per 50 gold of the cost of the component, minimum 1d10. Damage can't be reduced in any way. If this damage reduces you to 0 hit points, the spell fails, but the spell slot is not suspended. So, this is really interesting. Now, if you watched my series on the Final Fantasy XIV crossover classes that Soren designed, one of the things that I really hit hard on for certain subclasses was the ability to get extra spell slots. Like the Black Mage just had the ability to effectively cast twice as many spells as any other class in the game. And I specifically said, anytime you are giving a class the ability to substitute using something else for their spell slots, you are breaking the game, because magic is one of the easiest ways to unbalance the game by not looking at things like concentration rules, by not understanding how spell components work and things like that. Those are all essential for magic to not just be completely broken in 5th edition D&D. So when I first read this, specifically that second part about being able to use your blood to be able to help cast your spells, I immediately went, ooh, this is bad. But this is Matt Mercer we're talking about. He had to deal with... let's just say there was a sorcerer that critters that have been with Critical Role since the beginning know somehow was able to do some crazy things with sorcery points that never seemed to go away. And they had to very, very quickly... they very, very quickly learned the importance of things like if you cast a spell as a bonus action, you can't cast another leveled spell for the rest of that turn. The purpose behind that being sorcerers become broken when they can quick cast fireballs. That being said, when I first look at this, I'm like, ooh, this is bad. But it's not giving you additional spell slots. It's not really technically allowing you to cast spells you normally couldn't. It's literally taking some of the cost away from being a wizard. This is another thing that a lot of people tend to ignore just because depending on your campaign, there are some campaigns where and this can entirely be related to your DM. It can be related to in the Adventurers League. There was weird things involving money as well. But being a wizard is the most expensive class in the game. And the reason why is in order to use that defining feature, they have to pay for it. They have to pay 100 gold per level of spell that they copy into their spell book. Now, they have certain ways to get around that. If you pick a specific school, you can generally copy those spells for cheaper. But it's still very expensive to be a wizard. And another thing a lot of people don't think about is a lot of higher level spells specifically start requiring things that have a cost. And the way that spellcasting works in 5th edition is verbal components of a spell. You have to be able to speak and be heard. So if you are in an area where sound is blocked by like a silent spell or something, you cannot use verbal spells because the words actually have to come out. The words themselves have power. For somatic components, you have to have a hand free to do the actual somatic aspects of it, to make the sigils in the air or whatever you do that casts the spell. You have to have something to do that with. You cannot do it when you have a weapon in your hand unless you have a specific feat, meaning you were trained to be able to cast spells with a weapon in hand or while using a shield. And then finally, you have material components. And this is where things get a little bit more creative. Material components that don't have a cost, you actually don't have to have on you. If the spell requires material components, you actually can just use what's called a casting focus, a spell casting focus. And that can be a number of different things. Different classes use different things. For wizards, it's generally staves and wands. Some wizards will use orbs. They tend to be a little bit less common just because your kind of traditional wizard that you see in fiction generally has either a staff or a wand. So if you have a spellcasting focus, you don't need to have the material components available to you. If you do not have a spellcasting focus, you generally need to have a spellcasting materials bag, a component pouch on you that they assume you keep the components that you need for your spells. Now, the only time this doesn't matter is when there is a physical cost to the thing. Sometimes material components, it'll say like for the Revivify spell, you need a diamond worth at least 1,000 gold pieces. That means you can't use a spellcasting focus to replace that item. You actually have to have any item that requires money effectively. Not for the Blood Wizard. And this, I think, is really cool because, again, being a wizard is really expensive. This is kind of an interesting take on that idea of, okay, well, I'm going to use a material component, but it's going to be my blood. I also like the ability that as long as you're not at max hit points, you can use your body as your spellcasting focus. I think that is super, super cool. The idea of you going like full on Aaron from Attack on Titan, where you have to go fireball. Like, I think that's super cool. And that does mean that components that don't have a cost can be replaced with your blood. Components that do have a cost can be replaced by your blood as well. It's just going to take more of it. And my favorite part about this ability is the fact that it specifically says if this damage reduces you to 0 hit points, the spell fails, but the spell slot is not suspended. Because this is a roll, not a set amount of damage, which I think is brilliant. That means blood channeling is a gamble. And this is what I mean by that. Let's say you're trying to cast something with a really expensive component. Like let's say you're trying to cast something that has a 500 gold piece component that you just don't have access to at that particular point. Well, for each 50 GP, you have to take a D10 of the damage. That would be 10 D10 damage. A wizard has the lowest hit dice in the game. It has a D6 for their hit dice. So that means for every 50 gold piece, the cost of the component, you are almost doing 2 levels of damage to yourself. Because a D6 versus, technically 2D6 averages out to similar numbers to a D10. The average roll in a D10 is a 6. The average roll of 2D6 is a 7. So it's very, very similar. So what theoretically could happen is the wizard could be in a situation where I need to cast this spell. I don't have the components for whatever reason. I don't have the material components. It could be your materials were stolen from you. You could be locked up or something. It could be in the middle of a fight and they've gotten destroyed by something. Or maybe it is one of those the things where there are certain things where it will say it is consumed by this spell. So every time you cast a spell, you have to have a new version of this thing because it's consumed by this spell. Well, maybe you cast the spell once and you don't have enough to cast it again. Now you can use blood channeling. Do I have enough hit points? Well, theoretically, 10d10 necrotic damage could be 10 to damage. That is the lowest number you can roll on every single die. The likelihood of you rolling that is astronomically small. But it's still a possibility. It could also be 100 to damage. And what you're going to get generally is anywhere in between there. So let's say your wizard is trying to do this thing for 500 gold piece. It's going to be 10d to 10 damage. And they only have, let's say, 45 hit points. Well, statistically, again, the average roll on a D6 is a 6. Statistically, you're looking at about 60 hit points that you're going to get. But if you roll low on a few of those, that can knock that 60 down to below 45. It's a gamble. And this turns this into, this changes it from a wizard, which is very, like wizards in general are very, very much, I prepared, I studied, I know what is always going to happen. And this adds that little bit of chance that I just love. And I think the best way to play this class is to err on the side of recklessness and use blood channeling a fairly regular amount, especially as you get to higher levels. Hit points can be healed much easier as you get to higher and higher levels. So outside of combat, generally this isn't really a big deal, but in combat, in the moment, healing becomes significantly more difficult and significantly more costly. So treating this as your own little slot machine roll, I think is really, really interesting and can be really, really fun. Now, my experience is wizards don't deal with costly spell components as often as clerics do. Clerics get a ton of it for clerics and druids get a ton of it for a bunch of different spells that have all the resurrection spells require costly components. So without going through the entire wizard spell list and looking at every single one of them, I can't tell you how useful this is, but the idea behind it, being able to gamble your hit points to see if you can actually cast the spell or if it's going to render you unconscious, I like the idea. In practice, I don't know how practical it is, but the idea I think is really cool. So, yeah, blood channeling, I'm all for it. Moving on. Also at second level, you get Sanguine Burst. Whenever you roll damage for a spell you've cast of first level or higher, you can choose to take necrotic damage equal to the spell's level to re-roll a number of the damage dice up to your intelligence modifier, minimum 1. This damage can't be reduced in any way, and you must use the new rolls. So this is numbers manipulation, to be blunt. Again, I talk about average rolls every so often because I'm a math person. I took AP Calc when I was a junior in high school, and had the best grade in the course until I got bored with it and I stopped doing my homework. I still did really well on tests. I would get knocked down points because I would never turn in homework because I didn't need it. I almost aced the AP Calc exam. And then I went to college and I took statistics and experimental design because I'm a glutton for punishment. I love math. And so much of D&D is expressed in math. Modifiers are all math. Rolling dice is statistics. If you understand statistics, you can actually play a class like this significantly better, because you can do things like, okay, well, I know the average roll on this is a 6, or this, I have this much chance of this, and then advantage changes things, is effectively the same as giving you a plus 3.5, or all these other things. So what Sanguine Burst is this is numbers manipulation. By being able to re-roll and choose the ones that you re-roll, your average roll is just going to go up effectively. Anytime you do this, over the lifetime of the character, their average rolls are just going to be more damaging. I do like the fact most wizard subclasses will limit you to certain, because they're based on the arcane schools of magic. They will limit you to a certain school of magic for this. Like, well, your evocation spells can do this, or your enhancement or enchantment spells can do this. This is literally any spell that does damage, that is a leveled spell. You can reroll some damage by taking a little bit of damage, and even even a 9th level spell, that is 9 points of damage. That's not a ton of damage for a pretty useful ability. I don't think this is broke in any way, because it is still just rerolling. But from a game theory statistical standpoint, this is a really, really useful ability that again gives you that kind of, okay, is it worth me taking this damage now? Because it might not, like, I don't ever see Sanguine Burst ever rendering a character unconscious or doing anything like that. It's just not enough damage. But 5 hit points for a wizard in the middle of combat might be the difference next turn of whether they are conscious or not. So this is another one of those abilities. It's not quite going to be as much of a gamble as blood channeling is, because of the dice rolling into that. This is still something that you're going to have to weigh. Okay, can my wizard, which has low hit points, always can they survive this? Is it worth it? If I rolled 8d6 and I got 6 1s, well, yeah, I'm gonna take 4 or 5 points of damage to reroll those ones, because the absolute worst case scenario is I get all the ones back. But even if only 2 of them turn into 4 and 5, that's a huge difference in damage. And statistically, again, the lower the numbers that you rolled, the better chance you have of being able to roll higher numbers and to be able to justify it. So yeah, I like it. These two abilities could combine do kind of present something a little bit unique for wizards. Wizards are a single attribute dependent class, a SAD class, compared to multi-attribute dependent classes or MAD classes. All the wizard needs for anything is an intelligence score. All of their abilities are intelligence based. They don't need anything else. Generally, what I see a lot of people do that build wizards is they will give them a high intelligence. They will generally give them their next highest will generally be either dexterity or constitution. And in this one specifically, Constitution is going to be essential, because Constitution is your hit points. The higher your Constitution modifier, the more hit points you have. And something that I don't generally tend to see wizards doing is wizards will always, 4th level, they will increase their intelligence modifier for their ability score improvement. And 8th level, if they still need to increase it, they will do it then. So by 8th level, all wizards, almost exclusively, all of them have a 20 intelligence modifier, because it is the most important thing to the wizard being able to do what they're supposed to do. After that, I generally don't see them taking ability score increases. They take feats, because there's a lot of different feats that can be really, really fun with a spellcaster. With this particular subclass, there is a large incentive to increase your constitution score after you've maxed your intelligence. And to take feats you normally wouldn't, like the tough feat, which gives you additional hit points. Hit points are a huge deal for this caster, so I could definitely see a wizard, a blood magic wizard, cracking 100 hit points. Obviously never having as many hit points as like a barbarian or something, but being able to give like the rangers and the paladins a little bit of a run for their money, as they're like, hey, look at this, I got decent hit points to do. And I like that. I like the fact that this is going to inspire you to literally build the base of the character, your attributes themselves, differently to be able to take advantage of some of these abilities. So, yeah, moving on. At 6th level, you get Bond of Mutual Suffering. When a creature you can see hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to bind your vitality to the attacker and force them to share your pain. The attacker takes damage equal to the damage you took. This feature cannot be used against constructs or undead. You can use this feature once. You must finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. And at 14th level, you can use this feature twice between rests. So, talked about this before. One and done abilities. I'm generally not a huge fan of them because they need to be really, really useful in order to justify the fact that they're not going to be used. We've talked about the elixir paradox before on here. Basically, the idea is in games like Final Fantasy, elixirs are super, super rare. You can't buy them. You can't steal them. You only find them in chests, and they heal your character to max everything. A lot of people that play JRPGs will keep their elixirs until the final boss fight because they're all like, oh, well, this is super, super rare and I'm never going to get another one, so I better keep it for when I really, really need it. And then they finish the final boss with like 7 elixirs in their inventory that they've never used. That's what happens with one and done abilities. This particular ability, I'm fine with it being one and done until 14. It is a shorter long rest as opposed to a long rest. So it's not technically a one and done ability, but as someone actually pointed out in the comments of, I believe this is my last video, they go, well, the idea of it being a one and done on a short rest isn't true. But basically, after every combat, you can just take a short rest. No, you can't. In 5th edition, a short rest takes an hour. And from my own experience running home games and running Adventures League games, which I have literally 1,000 hours of those games under my belts, you do not get that many short rests in an adventuring day. You just don't. The game itself is supposedly balanced against the idea of 6 to 8 combats per adventuring day and 1 to 2 short rests. That's how they quote unquote balance everything. In practice, most parties, unless you're in like a dungeon delve type situation, most parties will, in general, only get between about 2 to 4 combats and possibly 1 short rest per day. A lot of adventuring companies never have the ability to take a short rest for a number of reasons. Having to sit around for an hour in the middle of something important is hard to justify. And this is especially true if you are in one of those dungeon delves situations where you're actually getting all the combats you're supposed to. Sitting around for an hour means the enemy has an entire hour to not only figure out that you're there, but to also prepare for you. So yes, this is a short or long rest one and done. It still doesn't mean you're going to get every single day you're going to be able to use it 2 or 3 times. So I still consider it a one and done ability. It's just a lesser one and done because you can possibly get it back in a day, but you still have to take that short rest, which lasts for an hour and can cause more problems than it's worth. And I know this because I played a monk and we are super reliant on short rests for our key. So I know exactly how hard it is to get a short rest because I was the one that was constantly going, hey guys, can we take a short rest? Can we take a short rest? I only have like 3 key points left. And so, yeah, short rests are not nearly as simple as they sound. Once you get to 14th level, this becomes even more useful because it becomes a 2 and done. And this this is the one ability that I almost think is a bit broken. Just a little bit on the overpowered side, simply because the attacker takes damage equal to the damage you took. That is a lot. If your wizard gets hit with something really, really bad, this can turn all of that damage, and there's no save they can make for this. This is just, wow, you're going to take a lot of damage. There's no rolls, there's no nothing. They just take the damage. That makes this a little bit difficult. I personally would probably prefer some sort of save for half damage in there. Or if it's going to be you just get to do it, then it just always does half damage. Because this feels a little bit overpowered. The fact that it's a one and done ability at first does mean that this is a little bit satiated. The other thing that's not really addressed here, and I'm not sure if Wizards of the Coast have ever addressed this either, is the idea of, can you take a reaction after an ability, after an attack reduces you to 0 hit points? My basic understanding of reactions would say no, meaning if somebody one-shots your wizard, they can't, turn around and make that one shot kill the person that killed them. No, if you get taken to 0 hit points, that means you're not going to be able to use your reaction because you're not conscious to be able to do it. Once you hit 0 hit points, you take the damage, then you do the reaction, because the this is going to cause arguments at the table, because the wording says when a creature you see hits you with an attack, not when you take damage or after the damage is rolled or anything. This is going to cause arguments, because attacks that knock out your blood wizard, they're going to say, well, I knew he was going to hit me, so I can just do it before I get reduced to 0 hit points, because the trigger point is when they hit, not when you take the damage. So, yeah, like I said, that's my one issue, is I would like them to kind of clear up specifically what happens when you get hit with something that takes you to 0 hit points. And if this is intended to be used, even if you take more damage than you have hit points, I don't think it should ever get that second use between rests. I think this is a powerful enough of ability that it makes sense for it to be a one and done. It sucks to have a one and done at 6th level, but it's a big deal. So yeah, overall, I like it. It's another thing where when you're playing this class, especially if, again, getting to 0 hit points means you can't use your reaction, you really have to start weighing Sanguine Burst and Blood Channeling, because it's like, oh wait, now they've Bond of Mutual Suffering, I can actually do more damage if someone hits me than I'm going to get from Sanguine Burst. But that requires someone hitting me, and it also requires me being able to live through the hit. So it adds all these dimensions of, like, your hit points are now a limited resource for you that you're going to be using constantly. So yeah, I like the idea behind it. I think in its raw form, it's a little bit overpowered. I would much rather see a saving throw to take half damage. And if they fail, they still take full damage, or just making it always do half damage, because without that, this is extremely potent. Especially since the only thing it takes, the only resource it takes to do is your reaction, which wizards don't have a ton of things they use their reaction for. They never take opportunity attacks unless they are unless they take the War Magic Feat or whatever it is that allows you to cast a cantrip for an opportunity attack. They will almost never take opportunity attacks. A lot of times because they're never close enough to enemies to get an opportunity attack. And Counterspell. Counterspell is the only other bonus or reaction I ever see wizards use, which is a really, really useful thing. And another reason why I like this, because this gives them a reason to not counterspell. A lot of people, and I've seen this argument over and over and over on the internet, about Counterspell is broken. Counterspell ruins 5th edition. No, it doesn't. The issue is a lot of DMs don't understand how to incentivize conserving your reactions. A reaction is a balancing mechanic, just like everything else in this. And so by giving your blood wizards a different use for their reaction, it might mean that blood wizards don't counterspell, or very rarely kick a counterspell, because stopping a spell from going off can be huge. It can massively change how combat is going. But taking a finger of death to the face and throwing it back at the enemy can be significantly more useful. So yeah, there's a lot to this. It's something that I really want to see actually used before I would try to balance it. There's so much here that I can't really theory cookie craft on, that I need to see this in actual play. But overall, my initial view of it is a little bit overpowered. Not massively broken or anything, just a little bit overpowered. And I would just add probably just a save for the enemy to take half damage, because that takes a lot of the bite away from it. And it also means things like legendary resistance can be used to blunt a little bit of this damage, meaning that legendary creatures specifically would be at a huge disadvantage to this ability, because there's no way for them to stop the damage. And so much of a legendary creature's kind of kit is built around, because most legendary creatures are designed to fight multiple enemies and action economy is important. That's what legendary resistance is for, and all these other things, is simply to give them a fighting chance. And this would take that away pretty easily. So that being said, let's move on. At 10th level, you get Glyph of Hemorrhaging. When you damage a creature with a spell, you can choose to curse that creature for a minute. While cursed in this way, whenever the creature is hit by an attack, it takes an extra d6 of necrotic damage. At the end of each of the creature's turns, it can make a con save against your spell save DC and the curse on a success. This feature cannot be used against undead or constructs, and once you use it, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. This is one thing that I'm kind of less than thrilled about this subclass, is there are so many, you can use this once per short or long rest in there, and that starts to get old really, really quick, because it just gives you all these other things to track, and all of them are the same kind of tracking. That being said, this is another one and done ability that does one and done abilities well, to the point where I would almost say get rid of the short rest on it, because this is an extremely potent ability depending on your party makeup. And specifically because it says whenever the creature is hit by an attack. There's a lot of different spells that do additional damage on a hit, but depending on their wording, it can cause some changes. Things like Hunter's Mark specifies weapon attacks. So if a warlock were to cast Hunter's Mark and then hit them with Eldritch Blast, it wouldn't do extra damage, because that's not a weapon attack. Hex, on the other hand, just says attack. So the fact that their Eldritch Blast gives them multiple blasts means that every time they hit with Eldritch Blast, they do additional damage. And that's where this one comes in. Anytime the creature is hit by an attack, it takes an extra d6 of necrotic damage. That also means this doesn't work with Magic Missile. Why? Because an attack has been defined thus far, and this has been ruled on by Jeremy Crawford, by, I think Perkins has ruled on it as well. An attack is basically anything that uses an attack roll. Magic Missiles are auto hits. There's no attack roll involved, so Magic Missile wouldn't take the extra, wouldn't get the additional damage from this. However, Scorching Ray would. Anything that makes you make multiple attack rolls would get benefits from this, which also means fighters will get a huge benefit from this. Warlocks, like I said, using Eldritch Blast. rangers using quick quiver, monks, anyone that gets extra attacks, dual wielders, anyone that gets extra attacks is going to get a huge benefit from this, because every single time you make an attack roll and hits, you get an extra d6 of damage. So by 10th level, in one more level, 11th level, just to make things a little easier, fighter has 3 attacks. That means if they're a dual wielding fighter, that is 4 attacks per turn for them. That would mean if you had a party that consisted of a blood mage, a warlock, and a dual wielding fighter, your action for the blood mage would be casting a spell that does damage and cursing the creature. That's what their action would be. The fighter would go and do an additional 4d6 damage, and the warlock at that point would do an additional 3d6 damage if all their eldritch blasts hit. So that is a single ability that is just done 7d6 damage, and that's only including 2 extra people. And it's not even taking the place of their action. It is in addition. This is effectively a free action that only requires you to cast a spell that does damage, which is kind of what wizards did do. The more people in your party that have multiple attacks, the more useful this is. And this can last for up to a minute. Now, they get to do their con save at the end of it, so it's one of those things that, again, you need to understand your enemy well, you need to understand your party well, you need to know when the best time to do this. This is not an ability you use at the beginning of combat when you're fighting a legendary creature, because they will simply, after the first turn that it happens, if they fail their save, they will just legendary resistance, and this ability is gone after a single turn. But even a single turn is going to be very useful for it. I don't know statistically how often this is going to last for multiple turns, but I'm thinking, just from what I've seen from other abilities similar to this, generally you're going to get 2 to 3. You're going to get 2 to 3 rounds of this being on before the creature you use it on saves out of it. That's just how it is. But that's a ton of damage if your party is doing things correctly. And it also means that your party needs to be paying attention during combat. If you have other spellcasters that are that are casting spells that require saves, they need to switch to spells that require attack rolls, because they won't get the benefit from this. Anyone that has the ability to make multiple attacks needs to make multiple attacks while this is on to get the biggest benefit from it. This is another one of those abilities that requires your team to work together, and I love things like that. It was a huge deal in 4th edition. The most broken thing you could do in 4th edition, more than, building broken characters, more than hybrid classes, the most broken thing in 4th edition did a D&D was teamwork. If you knew how your team worked and you knew exactly what everyone could do and everyone was paying attention, you could take out, thank you computer, you could take out monsters that were well beyond your ability to do so just by working together. 5th edition is not as focused on that, so anytime I see an ability that allows, that encourages to teamwork, I highlight it going, hey, this is a teamwork thing. Because knowing your party and knowing what they can do can be a ton of fun. So one of the things I used to do in the Adventurers League is, again, I did the convention circuit in Wisconsin, and there were quite a few people that did the circuit with me. Like we all lived here. We would all go to these different conventions, and we knew the different characters. We all had like half a dozen different characters, because that's how it is. But we all knew the different characters, and so when we would get to an adventure, it'd be, oh, hi, hi Chris, oh, hey Jody, how you doing? It's like, who are you bringing today? Oh, I'm bringing, I'm bringing Theseus with me. Oh, I'm bringing Aether with me. Oh, cool, we can do this, and this. Because we knew each other's characters, we would come up with these really good kind of wombo combos. and it was super super fun because we could get through encounters that we technically weren't supposed to. I've broken a couple Adventurers League modules because I knew what everyone else in my party could do because I'd worked with them a lot. Despite the fact that we were just random people showing up at tables, we would learn our friends' characters. Yeah. Anyway, I like Glyph of Hemorrhaging. It's another one of those abilities that's just that tiny bit close to being overpowered. Finally, at 14th level, you get Thicker Than Water. Whenever a spell or magical effect causes you to regain hit points, you regain an additional number of hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. In addition, when you're concentrating on a spell, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks. First things first. The non-magical attacks thing, it is extremely rare for monsters to have magic weapons. So this is effectively physical damage. Non-magical damage, you have resistance to do. That's a big deal. I've talked about this before. Concentration is the major limiting factor for spells in 5th edition. One of the easiest ways to make a spellcaster lose concentration is by making them make concentration checks, which they do every time they take damage. However, the DC for those checks is either 10 or half the damage that you take. Meaning, if you get hit by 40 points of damage in a single attack, that means you have a DC 20 you have to roll. And it's a Constitution saving throw. And again, most other wizards, they will get maybe a 14 in their Constitution. And then it'll never get any higher because they're focusing on feats and increasing their intelligence. So you only have a +2 to your con saves. With this one, again, you're incentivized to have a very large Constitution score. And physical attacks are going to do half damage. So what would have been, like, if you were going to take 50 points, which is a huge, huge blow to a wizard, that can knock you out real easy. But if you survive 50 points, well, that would be a DC 25 saving throw. And even with a nat 20, most wizards can't make that saving throw. But if it's physical to the damage, it's turned into 25, which means the saving throw for it is a 12, because you always round down. So that goes from a 25 to a 12 saving throw. You're going to make your concentration. That's always nice. The additional hit points thing is nice because, again, this particular spellcaster is going to be going through their hit points a lot more often than other ones because they use them to power their spells. So that is kind of nice. It makes it easier for you to get them. At 14th level, you have a +5. At 17, you'll get a +6 for your proficiency bonus. So an additional 5 or 6 hit points per heal is not a massive amount. That is not a game-breaking thing. But it adds up. The one thing I actually went to check, there are no abilities that allow you to heal multiple targets or redirect to heal the same target multiple times for a single action, compared to there are numerous spells and abilities that allow you to attack a target multiple times. So I think that would be kind of an interesting spell to eventually come up with, which is a spell maybe like magic missiles where you fire little healing bolts and you could heal something multiple times. It doesn't exist in 5th edition currently, and that would react really well with this, to the point where that would kind of be a little bit broken. But without that, it's nice. It means that outside of combat, getting multiple level 1 cure wounds or healing words are going to be significantly more beneficial than like a level 3 or a level 4 cure wounds or something like that, simply because for each additional time you get healed, you get additional hit points. So it does kind of change the dynamics of how you heal outside of combat. And it does specifically say whenever a spell or magical effect, and according to the PHB, and this is another thing that I specifically looked up, healing potions count as magical healing. So downing a bunch of regular healing potions will actually be more beneficial than downing a single greater or like superior healing potion, because every time you down a potion, you get extra hit points. It also means once you get to 14th level, healing potions become like gold for a blood magic wizard. The more healing potions you have, the less of an effect things like blood channeling and Sanguine Burst are going to have on you, because Sanguine Burst can be basically negated by a single healing potion. So yeah, this one flirts with some broken ideas depending on your access to healing potions and the like. Because a single regular healing potion is only 50 gold pieces, and is generally kind of expected to be something that you can buy in most cities. Greater, superior things and supreme healing potions are meant to be significantly more rare. But regular healing potions are designed to be relatively common. One of the things that we used to do in the Adventurers League is in between adventures, you would just buy 20 or 30 healing potions, because there was nothing to use your money for in the Adventurers League. It's one of the reasons why they eventually got rid of money, which was monumentally stupid in the Adventurers League. But they did it. But yeah, one of the things you used to do is my Aether, I haven't played him in years, but on his official Adventures League character sheet, I think he still has like 19 potions of healing, because that's just what you did, and he still had like 3,000 or 4,000 gold that he had on him. Like that's what you did, is you just spent all your gold on healing potions. So you didn't need to take short rests to regain hit points. Each healing potion was an action. It took 6 seconds to drink, so you could take a minute and drink 10 healing potions, which is a lot better than an hour and getting less hit points back in an hour. So, yeah. Anyway, final thoughts. Overall, I like the Blood Magic Wizard. I like the kind of gambling aspect that blood channeling introduces. I think the best way to use that is to lean into it. Use blood channeling when you don't have enough hit points for the thing to work. Let the dice, control whether or not your wizard is awake or not. Like, I think that would be super, super fun. Sanguine Burst is just statistical manipulation. It's modifying average rolls effectively. I'm not saying that it's a bad ability. It's a very straightforward ability. It does exactly what it's meant to do, and I think it does it well. Bond of Mutual Suffering, like I said, I think is just that little bit broken. And then Glyph of Hemorrhaging is really cool, and I think it's another one of those things that might be just a little bit broken. And then Thicker Than Water, I would almost want to see Thicker Than Water at 10, and then Glyph of Hemorrhaging at 14, just because Thicker Than Water seems less useful than Glyph of Hemorrhaging. So yeah, that would be my thoughts on it. Otherwise, that is going to be all for me today. As always, like I said in the beginning, like, share, subscribe, turn notifications on in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on blood magic in general? Blood magic shows up in a lot of fantasy, in general. In the Dragon Age series, it is forbidden. It's really, 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 really bad. Blood sacrifices are something that have existed in history. Like, we've always had this kind of fixation on blood and its mystical properties. What are your thoughts on the idea of blood magic? Do you like it? Do you think it makes sense that, magical beings should be able to use their blood or their life force to be able to channel spells? Do you think it's dumb? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that's all for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.